Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Dapo Adegboye. The top stories at this hour. Senate suspends Senator Ningi for 3 months following his allegations of budget padding. Controversial Islamic cleric Sheikh Gumi offers to negotiate with bandits on behalf of the Nigerian government. Guinea's Prime Minister suggests extending the military junta's stay in power. Details in a moment. The Nigerian Senate has suspended Senator Abdul Ningi for 3 months following his allegation of 3.7 trillion naira budget padding in the 2024 budget. Ningi, a prominent member of the People's Democratic Party and chairman of the Senate Committee on Population representing Bauchi Central, faced mounting scrutiny after his claims sparked controversy within the Senate. During the Tuesday's plenary session, Senator Olamilekan Adeola, APC Ogun West, chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriations, brought forward a motion to address Ningi's allegation, citing an urgent need to address the issue of false claims. However, Senate President Godswill Akpabio announced the suspension of the embattled senator for a period of 3 months, following a voice vote on the motion amended by Senator Garba Modaki. In the meantime, Senator Abdul Ningi has resigned his position as the chairman of the Northern Senators Forum. This comes hours after he was suspended for 3 months over his claim that the 2024 budget was padded to the tune of 3.7 trillion naira. Ningi, a member of the People's Democratic Party, is the chairman of Senate Committee on Population and represents Bauchi Central. While the Senate called for a probe into the allegation, some northern senators disowned the claims made by Ningi, saying he did not speak for them. To discuss this, I'm joined on the news at this time by a public affairs analyst, Jide Johnson. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, in your view, are there any broader implications of this case for budget transparency and accountability in Nigeria? And does this actually cast a light on any systemic issues?
Well, there are systemic issues. There's no doubt that some of the issues raised with respect to Ningi's position with respect to whether what was passed has been harmonized. There is the need for the harmonization of the 2024 appropriation bill that was passed by the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Rep. It was very clear what the plenary. However, it's just the figure that is being projected by Abdullahi Ningi is not what was actually passed. I think that's the discrepancy was not as much as what he has projected. But there's no doubt if you watch the plenary of the National Assembly in the course of today, you discover that it was even pointed out, particularly by the Deputy Senate President, that they pointed out the need for both the Senate and the House of Rep and the Executive to come whether with a correctum or with an amendment to address some of the issues that were wrong with the 2024 appropriation bill that was passed by the National Assembly and assented to by the President. And on the broader issue of transparency, I think the National Assembly must wake up to its responsibility to understand that the core function they have is to pass the annual appropriation bill. If a bill was presented in November 30 or I think November 30 or October 30th, I can't recall whichever date was produced. 1 month, 2 months is not enough for them to have meaningful deliberation. What we have seen over the years is for the speedy passage of this bill without too much deliberation. That's why we have had issues with budget padding or no budget padding, crisis after the budget had been passed, and question being raised whether the budget passed, is the budget implemented, and whether we have 50% or even 60% implementation of the budget we have passed in the past. So there are systemic issues, there are process issues, there are procedural issues that the National Assembly must address.
All right. Now, some have suggested that Senator Ningi's suspension might be politically motivated. What's your take on this perspective? And does Senator Ningi's party affiliation play a role in how this case has been handled?
I I disagree with that position. I disagree because look, it was a public hearing that was televised for everybody to follow. If you actually follow the proceeding from the beginning to the end, you know that the principle of fair hearing, the principle of transparency, the principle of democracy was allowed to play its hand. And then if you look at the motion moved by Senator Jimo from Ondo State, I can't recall his surname now. He was the one that moved the motion for the suspension, 12 months. He proposed 12 months suspension, which was later amended to 6 months and 3 months. And then, in the wisdom of the Senate, the 3 months suspension was accepted. So, if you follow the proceeding, you won't say this undemocratic or it's the majority party overreaching its influence and its power in the National Assembly. Look, there was an infraction. The rule book of the Senate were read, and there were infractions that were committed. And based on the rule book, the process and the procedure of the Senate, this is the method they used to discipline themselves. So I don't think that that was trying to stifle the opposition. You could, if you follow the proceeding, you saw that the minority leader, who is from Senator Abamoro, who is from Benue State, when order was restored, you recall during the session, Senator Jaribe from Cross River raised a particular issue with respect to some senator getting 500 million constituency project and some not getting, which caused this order before order was restored. And it was the minority that spoke after order was restored in the floor of the National Assembly for deliberations to continue. So as far as I'm concerned, the measure that was taken was not autocratic, it was democratic, and it was transparent, and everybody was given a fair hearing. And all those that were accused were given opportunity to express themselves, to justify whatever position they've taken with respect to going public with what they have said and trying to correct whatever impression they have created concerning the image of the Senate.
All right, Jide Johnson, of course, before I let you go, could this case actually set some sort of precedence for how future allegations of budget, padding in the country is handled?
Well, if you are not careful, this might be the approach that might be adopted even when someone had a genuine cause to raise issues concerning budget padding. But one thing I'm certain is that whether you call it padding or not padding, look, the issue of padding is not peculiar to Nigerian legislature alone. It's a major problem you have where you have the legislature, because constitutionally they are the ones that are given the responsibility to give approval to whatever estimate the executive is. The power of the purse belongs to the legislature. And if you look at even budgeting when it comes to American government, which practice the same system of government, federal system of government with the presidential system of government, you always have issues, counter issues with respect to budget or no budget. For example, the budget of America for the next, if deliberations are not had in the next few days, I'm not sure that the government will not shut down the United States of America. So it's one of the weaknesses, the inherent weaknesses of presidential system of government, and particularly when you have federal system of government and you have a bicameral legislature. It's a learning curve, and I hope that we'll learn from this, and the National Assembly will be more transparent and will be more open. And a lot of Nigerians, some of the things that are hidden in the budget will be brought into the public domain, so there won't be any controversy. Once there is transparency, all of this controversy we have witnessed concerning this budget and the issues you have had with budget padding and non-budget padding will be laid to rest, because once he that comes to equity must come with clean hands. If you bring everything into the public domain, there is no basis for rumor or counter allegations with respect to what has happened.
All right, Jide Johnson, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
All right. In the meantime, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has presented additional evidence against MICAD Project City Services Limited and James Nolan, a director of Process and Industrial Development Limited, before Justice Nora Egwatu of the Federal High Court in Abuja. This development was announced in a statement by the Economic and Financial Crimes Head of Media and Publicity, Dele Oyewale. Now, the criminal case stems from the controversial gas supply processing agreement between Process and Industrial Development and the federal government of Nigeria. P&ID had previously secured an $11 billion award against the federal government over the terminated contract. However, on a significant turn of events last October, a London arbitration court overturned the $11 billion award, citing fraudulent procurement of the contract. MICAD Project, CT Services Limited, and James Nolan are facing 20 counts related to charges of obtaining by pretence, money laundering, the criminal conversion of proceeds of crime totaling 151 million naira. That's about 394,328 naira. And of course, Kaduna-based Muslim cleric Sheikh Ahmed Gumi has offered to engage in dialogue with the bandits responsible for the abduction of approximately 287 school children from Kuriga Government College or Secondary and Leah primary schools in Chukun local government area of the state. Gumi's statement comes as a plea to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to grant him the opportunity to negotiate the release of the abducted students. The prominent Islamic scholar emphasized the importance of avoiding the mistakes of the past administration, which refused to engage in dialogue with bandits. Despite the refusal of the affected state government to negotiate with the bandits for the release of the school children and denying claims of hiring a private negotiator, Sheikh Gumi urged the government to initiate dialogue not only for the Kuriga school abduction, but for all cases involving banditry. Now joining me to discuss this development is Country Director, Global Peace Foundation Nigeria, and former Chairman, Kan Kaduna State. That's Reverend Joseph John Hayab. Thank you for your time. Let's start off with this. Now, Reverend, as a religious leader yourself, what are your thoughts on Sheikh Gumi's offer to engage in dialogue with bandits responsible for the recent abductions?
I think Gumi is assuming that we have forgotten, but some of us have not forgotten, that when people were kidnapped on the train attack, a very close associate of Gumi, I can even say his right-hand man, came out to say he is the one, or he is dialoguing on behalf with the bandits. At the end, it ended up in crisis. It ended up in a shameful thing. Because we are in Nigeria, the story is not longer coming out, but up to today, the matter has not ended, because he was arrested by Interpol in Egypt, brought back to Nigeria. Things were found in his house. What he called negotiation turns out to be like a business. So when people claim, or when people say that they want to negotiate on behalf of government, they should first of all be sure that they are honest and transparent in what is happening. I've been around for some years. I was also involved in the previous effort to get people who were kidnapped either by the train, on the train, or students. And so I know a little about some of these stories. And I want to beg Gumi that it is too early for us to start talking about this. We have criminals tormenting fellow Nigerians. We have people who have no regard for government and constituted authority. Tell me, what is the crime of innocent children that you go and adopt them? What have they done? If government have not done you well, is it the parents of these children or these children that have not done you well that you go and take them to the bush and punish them? We know how much as Baptist Church and the Christian community in Kaduna State we pay to get our 121 children that were adopted in the Bethel Baptist High School. We paid over 250 million. And I also know the role some of these foreign negotiators play. So it is not right for people to start saying this. If you want to connect with Tinubu, just say, Tinubu, I want to see you. I also want to be one of those who come around. But don't hide under this kind of unfortunate incident and say that we should negotiate. What exactly is the grievances of this bandit? What have we done to them? What have the Nigerian community done to them that they are angry? So that we can apologize and talk about it. We don't even know what they are doing. So what negotiation are we? You went to the bush several times and came back. What do we really have about the conversations surrounding your subject? I do understand these things, but I'm not comfortable knowing what happened some years ago, and I don't want us to go back. I want to see the current administration stamping our ground.
Okay, so what do you suggest that religious leaders, what role do you suggest they can play in promoting peace and actually resolving conflicts of this manner, in the country?
Yeah, that's where I'm coming to. But let me just quickly respond to your question. As religious leaders, we have a responsibility to, number one, Remind followers to know that service to God is service to nation. If you serve your nation, you are serving God. If you are patriotic to your nation, you are doing it because of God. So people shouldn't think that because this is Nigeria, so they can destroy Nigeria and then claim to be serving God. You cannot serve God by destroying your country. In the Bible tells us that every person is subject to governing authority because God constitutes the governing authority to regulate and ensure things are done in order. So when people become terrorists, when people terrorize Nigerians, destroy police stations, kill and maim soldiers, and they say they are serving God, I have a lot of concern about that. So religious leaders have a responsibility to tell people who are doing wrong but hiding under religion that what they are doing is a disservice to their faith. The fact about it is that they are giving their religion a bad name. That is one thing. As religious leaders, we must continue this preaching. We must also engage with other faiths to see that the voice is in unison. It's not just one side. We are not coming to debate these verses. We are talking about Nigeria. We are coming to say, look, as religious leaders, whether you are Christian, Muslim, whether you are Hindu or Buddhist, whatever religion you belong, you have a responsibility to ensure that Nigerian is peaceful, Nigerian is safe. If you terrorize Nigerian, if you cause Nigerian pain, you are not doing good. That's one role religious leaders can play. They cannot even come out publicly. Like when Gumi started it, he did say, and I quote, that his aim to go to them was to preach to them Islam. And I think that should be what we should do. Remind them that you are hiding under faith, but you are causing people pain. Our religion does not teach that. You are not doing it right. If we do it, then people who do that, we cannot come and be defending them or protecting them and telling government to be careful how she deals with them. No. An enemy of the state should be dealt with by the authority and the powers that be in Nigeria. And not only by that, you see, we have a constitution. The responsibility of securing lives and properties in this country is shouldered on government. So if anybody comes to terrorize Nigerians, to make things difficult for Nigerians, as a faith leader, my job is to remind government to remember what the Constitution or the powers that they have under the Constitution. They should not compromise it because that is why they are there. If they cannot do it, then let them resign.
All right, just before I let you go, given the escalating insecurity in the country, do you think there is a need for more concerted efforts from religious leaders to address these particular issues, particularly from the grassroots?
Honestly speaking, there are religious leaders who are doing their best and putting their best to make sure that there is peace in Nigeria, there is progress in Nigeria. I remember very well the particular day that these young people went and kidnapped these children. A group called Interfaith Dialogue Forum for Peace. We are in Kaduna. A group of over 120 religious leaders, the fact that we were almost 500 in that whole, talking about how we can tackle poverty and tackle insecurity as our collective responsibility. Unfortunately, as we were discussing that, enemies were in the bush terrorizing our innocent children. So there are efforts going on out there. But you see, Nigerian is big, Nigerian is wide. That small effort is not enough. We need to intensify. We need to continue to go to places. We need to remind people in the rural area that, look, nobody should come here and tell you he loves you when he's terrorizing Nigeria. Nobody should come here and say he's defending you when he's causing Nigerian pains. Whether he's a politician, whether he's a bandit or call him whatever, a religious leader, anybody whose purpose of coming close to you is to cause Nigerian pain, do not love you. To destroy Nigeria is do not love you. So we need to continue that because when more people become informed and all people of different shades and opinions unite, then we can deal with this criminality. This criminality is growing strong in Nigeria simply for one reason. Before they started, they softly divided us. They divided us along religious line, divided us along ethnic line, divided us along regional line, and then when we were divided, then they started operating. That's why we find it difficult to unite, to chase them away. Instead, we accuse each other, fight each other when they are destroying all of us. So we must close ranks and unite and never show that we are sympathetic to one group or trying to be nice to one group. A criminal is a criminal. An enemy of a country is an enemy of a country. Whether he goes to church or go to mosque, we must not shield him.
All right. Thank you for your time on the news.
Thank you for having me.
All right. At this point, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. Welcome back. As Ondo State in southwest Nigeria gears up for its upcoming governorship poll, it appears that the internal wranglings within the ruling All Progressives Congress since the death of its former governor and the elevation of the office of the deputy is far from over. This is apparent in the party's upcoming primaries and leadership. Now joining me on the news to discuss this is Chief Olushola Alexander, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and the Southwest Director, APC Presidential Campaign Organization in 2019, and also the National Deputy Director, Legal Committee of the Tinubu-Shettima Presidential Campaign in 2023. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, what do you make, or what's your take on the current leadership of the party at the state level? Is it daring enough and also inclusive, or do you think it's been somewhat hijacked?
Well, thank you very much. The sudden exit of a brother, a friend, former governor of Ondo State, now departed, Arakunrin Akeredolu, changed a lot of narratives in the party and in the government of the state. It brought about parity and disparity. It elevated and de-elevated. And it's like the center was no longer holding. But I want to assure you and the general public that there's nothing to be scared about within the party. Aspirants are juggling for support from members. All I have said, and I believe, is that the party leadership must be very strong, must be in charge, because unlike when Akeredolu was there, we no longer have a center that is uninterested, that is dispassionate, that could be fair or just in providing leadership. So it is a beacon on the party leadership to rise and be able to face the challenges. I believe that aspirants are very mature. We are all dignified people. The governor now has occupied a leadership position. We have senators among us. We have a member of House of Representatives. Others have as well in their different endeavors. I think all of us must appreciate the need for the supremacy of the party and to place the interest of the party above personal interest. God helping us, we should be able to say through with minimum acrimony.
All right. Now, do you think that the current governor has been able to somewhat unify the party since the passing of the past governor? And of course, how do you think this is also rubbing off on the state as a whole?
Well, at the moment, we do not have a leadership that is bringing everybody together. And it is understandable because the governor that emerged after the demands of Governor Akeredolu is personally interested to have the ticket of the party in April, and therefore is no longer in a position to provide central leadership. And he has, of course, one we're expecting to undertake actions which will advance his aspiration. And those actions are necessarily inconsistent with the interests of other aspirants. And therefore, he cannot now be regarded as a rallying point for the party. That notwithstanding, we must draw a line between governance and administration of the party. He will continue to govern the state as is obliged to do under the Constitution, but he cannot at this moment, because of his interest, his aspiration, which is legitimate, he cannot provide a central leadership for everybody in the party. And when you view that vis-a-vis actions that have been taken at the moment from the government end, it has become necessary for the party structure in the state, especially the state working committee, to rise above board, be bold, courageous, and be able to hold the party together. And if that happens, I think we will surmount all the problems.
As somebody who worked closely with the former governor, that's Governor Akeredolu, and also one that, is vying for office as an aspirant yourself, what are you clamoring for, ahead of the primaries?
I think this is general among the aspirants. All of us are looking forward to a party primary that is free and fair, where goalposts will not be shifted after the commencement of the match. We are looking forward to a situation where we will be allowed, especially now that the party has decided for direct primaries, where power has shifted with the grassroots, as against the hitherto practice, where a few individuals will just sit in the comfort of their rooms, generate 5 delegates, and impose on the party. The leadership of the party must ensure that the will of the people prevails. And once this is done, the outcome of the primary will be acceptable to everybody. No doubt I'm one of the aspirants, and that was the high point of my discussion with the party yesterday when I visited to notify them of my intention to run, to pick the ticket of the party come April. I emphasized the need for the party to be fair to all concerned, to maximize fairness and minimize bitterness in the course of conducting the primary. The outcome of the primary must evoke confidence, must evoke acceptability, and must be a product of fairness and equity. Once that is done, I believe that our party will be together and we can win any election in the state.
All right. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Chief Olushola Alexander Oke, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Once again, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Now, still on the news at this time, hundreds of women belonging to different civil society groups marched through the Oregon axis of Lagos to the gate of the Erisco Food Company, demanding the immediate release of Chioma Okoli. Chioma was arrested and detained after she asked for reviews on some tomato paste, saying the product had high sugar concentration. The review apparently didn't go down well with the owner of the company, leading to Chioma's arrest. Now, News Central's Bernard Akede followed the marching women and filed in this report.
The cries for Chioma Okoli to be released immediately and unconditionally have moved from social media to the streets. These women say Chioma committed no crime. All she did was to give her opinion on a product she tried for the first time.
We stand with Chioma Okoli because Chioma Okoli represents the average Nigerian who's unable to speak up for themselves in the face of harassment and bullying. And we see what's going on appears to be a handshake between powers that be, put that in quotation marks. What we're doing here as a human rights organization is to say that every citizen has a right to speak up. Particularly, every consumer has a right to give a review about a product that they buy.
It will be recalled that Chioma had expressed dissatisfaction with the taste of Najiko tomato mix, which she purchased for the first time. This review led to her arrest after Chief Eric Umofia, the CEO of Erisco Foods Limited, lodged a complaint with the Inspector General of Police, alleging that Chioma was the ringleader of a criminal syndicate aiming to sabotage his company.
This company was established before Chioma was born. Whoever is that Chioma, 40 years ago, I was suffering for this company to establish it. Now, because of the rants, we will allow her to close our company down. I'd rather close the Erisco Food down and fight for my reputation, fight for my brand, fight for my good name before I die.
Chioma, a pregnant mother of 3, is now being detained in Abuja, and these civil society groups are calling for justice.
No Nigerian is more Nigerian than any other Nigerian. So a Nigerian can't be using the apparatus of the state to oppress another Nigerian. So we believe that standing in solidarity with Wotsi and Chioma Okoli to make sure that she's treated rightly by our assailants and the Nigerian police.
After the procession along Oregon Road in Ikeja axis of Lagos, the group came to a halt in front of the Erisco company and amplified their voices. They chanted songs of solidarity, stating that injustice to one is injustice to all.
We're walking here today because every single one of us is Chioma. Every one of us. Chioma is you, and you. Do we have the right to be citizens in a country without breaking the law and express how we wish? Or don't we? I mean, that's the question the IG and Eric Murphy has to answer.
The message by the women who are chanting songs of solidarity in front of Erisco Food Company here in Oregun, Lagos is simple. They are saying that Chioma is not a criminal and they are demanding her immediate and unconditional release. The women here are saying that as long as Erisco Foods Company would not listen to them, they would not stop talking. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Let's move to health matters now, where the Oyo State government has implemented a ban on the use of styrofoam for food packaging and storage in a bid to enhance food safety standards. This decision comes after the State House of Assembly on Thursday, that's February 8, 2024, urged the state government to take action against styrofoam usage. In response, the government inaugurated the Food Safety Compliance Enforcement Task Force to oversee the enforcement of food safety regulations across the state. Announcing the ban during the Food Safety Stakeholders Forum and the inauguration of the task force in Ibadan, the State Commissioner for Health, Oluwaserimi Ajetomobi, emphasized the importance of upholding food safety standards. Ajetomobi, represented by the ministry's permanent secretary, Akintunde Ayinde, stated that prevention is better and cheaper than cure, urging strict adherence to food standards to safeguard lives in the state. Now, joining me to discuss this is the immediate past president, Lautech Teaching Hospital, Dr. Mushokbe Orogun. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. Now, what health risks are associated with continued usage of the styrofoam for food packaging and storage?
Again, thank you so much. Thank you for this. Now, about the styrofoam, there are so many health risks associated with the use of styrofoam. And for some time, companies, especially food companies that pay so much attention to the health of people, especially via food, have banned or have limited the use of styrofoam. Now, in the year 2023, WHO actually published the data that about 20 million cases of cancer were diagnosed in 2023 alone, and close to 10 million persons died from cancer. Now, styrofoam, which is made from polystyrene, essentially, is linked with genetic alterations, and that is directly linked to what we call carcinogenesis in the medical parlance, which essentially means the development of cancer. So styrofoam has a risk for cancer development, apart from its environmental risks, which, because styrofoam is not biodegradable, Washington published an article that shows that styrofoam can take up to 500 years to be degraded fully. Now, 500 years is a long time. It means that these materials will clog up the drainages and all other places where water should pass through. And because water will be clogged up and not flow freely, there will be diseases that are perpetuated by such conditions. So there are quite a number of risks that these will really present to people, both bodily to the persons and then even to the environment. And all of these would lead to ill health at the end of the day. So that's why we see state governments taking this seriously and banning the use of styrofoam, because that is really the way to go.
All right, now let's talk about alternatives to styrofoam that are available to small restaurants and traders, and the health benefits associated with switching to these alternatives.
Yes, there are alternatives, because it will really be a failed mission if there are no alternatives. Some of the alternatives are biodegradable plastics, which we see that restaurants are turning to in increasing number since the ban on the styrofoam. Also, we have plant-based containers. There are companies that make plant-based containers. Although it may seem to be a bit more expensive than the styrofoam, but the far-reaching health benefits would pretty much compensate for whatever increase in price that we have. We have aluminum foils too that can be used to package foods, and we have paper bags. All of these have been employed by companies. They are not really new things. It's just that they've not been used in the way they ought to be used. And now that we see bans on the styrofoam across states, I think we will see increasing use of some of these as in the coming days.
All right. I mean, you talked about biodegradable plastics. I would have loved you to give some sort of, will I say, explanation as regards that, because there's also the conversation around the use of plastic itself. But in terms of public health, what initiatives do you propose to educate the public about the health risk associated with styrofoam usage and also promote healthy food packaging practices?
First of all, there has to be honesty, a lot of it, because the populace is suspicious of the things that are done, and that means that the people that are making these laws have to really invest in public education, and that would mean going through radio stations, media outlets like yours, that have this reach, and then even going to the level of religious houses and through all this media to pass the message across as to the risks and the risks of styrofoam usage and the benefits of switching to these other methods of food packaging. I think that would be important. Also, I think it would be important to bring on people who are experts, both in the manufacturing industry and in the health industry, to also talk to people. Again, going to schools to educate children on the usage of these things, and even going to the places where these packaging modes are used the most, the restaurants, to also talk to them to change the means of packaging food for their customers, and really talk to them about the health benefits of switching. And shortly before you take over, about the plastics, I think the encouragement should be to use plastic that you can use more than once, not a single-use plastic, those that you can use more than once. And there are companies that are also switching to that, encouraging people to bring their own containers so that you don't have to have plastics like that or styrofoams like that you have to dispose, which will really harm the environment.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're watching News Central now, and of course, coming up, Liberia sacks port officials over corruption allegation. We have details of this and more after the break. Stay with us. Liberia's National Port Authority has taken decisive action by dismissing 10 senior officials accused of financial improprieties. Now, according to Sekou Hussein, the managing director of NPA, the dismissal comes after an internal investigation uncovered allegations of corruption among the officials. The official stated that the case has been transferred or referred to the police for further investigation and potential prosecution, signaling a firm stance against corruption within the organization. In a related development, the NPA also reported 7 seaport officers for their alleged involvement in a conspiracy to steal 3 20-foot trucks of rice from port facilities just last week, further underscoring the extent of the corruption crackdown. Let's head to South Africa, where the electoral body has fired an official it accuses of leaking the electoral candidates list of 2 major political parties. Chief Electoral Officer of the Electoral Commission of South Africa says investigations found the employee downloaded the candidates list of several political parties last Friday. The candidates list of the ruling African National Congress and the ex-President Jacob Zuma's newly formed party were leaked on social media merely hours after the parties submitted them to the Electoral Commission. The leak angered the MK party, which has threatened to take legal action against the electoral body. Now, tropical storm Filippo has made landfall in Mozambique's Ihambane province. The storm disrupted electricity and communications in the province and also Sofila. It is already being felt in Gaza, and as it moves down, it's expected to start its devastating effect in Maputo. As it continues to move westwards across southern Mozambique, the winds will quickly weaken to the system will get downgraded to a tropical depression over the coming hours. Although the winds will ease, Filippo will continue to bring some heavy rainfalls across southern Mozambique, with a centimeter or more in places. So Filippo will continue to threaten some flooding. The leaders of embattled neighbors Rwanda and DR Congo may be poised to meet to discuss fighting in eastern Congolese region that Kigali has been accused of inflaming. Fighting between Tutsi M23 rebels and Congolese soldiers have forced more than 100,000 people to flee. The head of the French anti-terrorism prosecutor's office, Jean-Francois Richard, arrived in Kigali this Monday, a month before the 30th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsis. It says there's a need to improve cooperation with the Rwandan authorities in order to fast-track the trial of suspected genocide perpetrators living in France. Qatar Foreign Ministry spokesperson Majid Al-Ansari has told a news conference in Doha that Israel and Hamas are not close to a deal on a cessation of hostilities in Gaza and releasing hostages.
I can't offer any timeline, sadly, at the moment. The situation is very complicated on the ground. We are not near a deal, meaning that we are not seeing both sides converging on a language that can resolve the current disagreements over the implementation of the deal. But we remain hopeful, and we continue pushing for a deal to happen in the near future. Well, thank you, Callum. As I was just saying, we were all hoping that the people of Gaza can receive the holy month of Ramadan with some notion of peace, some notion of normalcy, and sadly that did not happen. All of us were pushing towards that happening before the beginning of Ramadan. However, that did not deter us from continuing the work and the negotiations to reach a deal, hopefully within the confines of Ramadan.
Authorities in France say the search has continued for 2 children who went missing in the southern part of the country following the weekend's floods, which killed 5 persons. Commander of the Als Gendarmerie Company, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Selou, explained that a search force of around 100 personnel led by the Gendarmerie with technical support, notably from the fire department, has been deployed to the site.
Donc la situation aujourd'hui, c'est que c'est le 3e jour de recherche depuis la disparition des personnes pour lesquelles nous essayons de retrouver la trace. Donc en l'occurrence, hier, il y a eu la découverte d'une des 3 personnes et nous sommes donc toujours dans les opérations de recherche, à la fois par la voie terrestre, par la voie aquatique et par la voie aérienne, donc de manière à avoir vraiment une vue globale sur l'ensemble des points où les personnes pourraient être retenues. Donc les opérations qui sont en cours, elles sont actuellement appuyées par une centaine de personnels. Donc c'est des équipes qui sont mixtes, c'est un dispositif de recherche, donc dirigé par la gendarmerie, avec l'appui de moyens techniques, notamment des pompiers. Donc une centaine de personnels qui sont répartis par secteur, où on priorise par en fait la pertinence de pouvoir retrouver les personnes qui sont recherchées.
Nigerian weightlifters propelled the country to 2nd place on the African Games medals table with a dominant performance on Monday. Now, the weightlifters swept all 9 gold medals up for grabs in different categories for the event at the University of Ghana Stadium. Adijat Olarinoye, Rafiatu Lawal and Edidiong Umofia Each achieved a remarkable triple gold feat in their weight categories, claiming gold in snatch, clean and jerk, and total lift. Now, 2022 Commonwealth champion Olarin Oye snatched the women's 80-kilogram clean and jerked 105 kilogram for a total lift of 185 kilogram. And of course, we also have Lawal, another 2022 Commonwealth champion, mirrored the same feat in the women's 59 kg class. Umofia, a debutant in the men's 67 kg category, displayed dominance with a 135 kg snatch and 165 kg clean and jerk and a total lift of 300 kg. And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. Nigeria's Senate has suspended Senator Ningi for 3 months following his allegations of budget padding. And we also told you that controversial Islamic cleric Sheikh Gumi has offered to negotiate with bandits on behalf of the Nigerian government. And finally, we told you that Guinea's Prime Minister has suggested extending the military junta's stay in power. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422 Star Times, channel 274, Apple TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dapo Adegboye. Bye for now.